In our last lesson, we solved systems equations. We had a couple of equations by graphing. We graphed the lines and saw where they crossed, and we identified the x and y where they crossed, and that represented the answer for the system. That x and y worked for both set of equations. Well, graphing's not real practical, especially by hand. So we're going to go over some techniques on how to solve systems of equations that are a little bit more efficient than graphing and can be a lot more precise. So we're going to get exact answers today by solving a system by substitution. I've got the steps labeled up here if you want to review those. Isolate a variable, that means get a letter alone. And I say try to pick a letter that has a coefficient of 1. That makes it easier to get alone. So don't pick something that has something other than 1 in front of it, because then you'll end up dealing with fractions, and that's never my goal for you to use fractions. I like to avoid those just as much as you. So once we do that, you take that variable out of the other equation, then you put your equation that you came up with into the other equation. You substitute it in. Substitution means, put something in of equal value into the place of another. I've got the steps down low here. You do want to check your answers at the end, step 5. And then step 6 is, you do a happy dance if both are correct. Because you've done a lot of work, you've earned it. Pick your favorite dance and do a happy dance. So here's what we got. We've got 2x plus 3y equals 1 and x minus 2y equals 4. I want to come up with the x and y that work for both. So I'm going to get a letter alone. I said I'm going to get this x over here alone because there's a 1 in front of it. And it's real easy to get it alone. All I have to do is add 2y over and step 1 is complete. If I have gotten something on the left alone, I would have had to divide by 2 or divide by 3 at some point, and I would have been dealing with fractions. If I would have got this x alone, I'd end up with dividing by 2, so I'd have had negative 3/2 y minus, or plus a half on the right side. If you get the y alone, you'd have had y equals negative 2/3 x plus a third. That's just not as clean to work with. So that's why I've got this x alone right here. Now I've got this spaced out into 2 columns. I think this is the best way to go. Over on my right, I've got step 1. Step 2 and 3 are going to be on the other side of step 1. And step 2 is just take what we found over here, 2y plus 4, and plug it in place of the x, because that's what x equals. Make sure you use parentheses so that you realize that you need to double everything. I need to use the distributive property and get 4y plus 8. So then I work my way down there and I solve and I get a solution for y. So that's the whole point of this, is to try to make an equation that has only one variable in it, because then we can solve it. So I got y is negative 1. We're not done though, we need both x and y. So then we're going to go back over here after getting step 3 solution and plug that in to step 4. All I've done over here is taken this equation, x minus 2y equals 4, and said, you know what, y equals negative 1. Let's put that in the y spot. So instead of 2y, I have 2 times, oh, actually I use this one, sorry. Instead of 2y, I've got 2 times negative 1, which is negative 2. Then you add the 4 and you find out x is 2. Then we want to go back and do what we did at the start of yesterday. You want to plug them in, make sure they work. That's what I've done here. I took 2x plus 3y equals 1, and I plugged in x is 2, and y is negative 1. And when I do that, I get 1, and that's what I have up here. I have a 1, so I'm very happy about that. So far I'm correct. Let's do the same thing over on the right. Let's take this one here. We're going to plug it in the original just in case we made a mistake getting a letter alone. And we're going to plug in for x. Here's my x. And x was 2. X is still 2. And then y is still negative 1. I put that in for the y right there. do the math, you get 2 plus 2 is 4, and that's what we're looking for. We wanted these to match up. It works for both, so now you can go ahead and pick your favorite happy dance. Just, you know, whatever, keep it appropriate. Next one. What went wrong on the next one? Well, this one I did some work here, and I said, I got 3x minus y equals negative 1. Over on the right, I got 4x minus 5y equals negative 6. What's a good letter to get along? I said this y. Now, it doesn't have a 1 in front of it, but it's got a negative 1. So that makes it easier to get a loan than something that's got a 3 in front of it, or a 4 in front of it, or a 5 in front of it. So getting the y alone, I see that it would turn into, well, negative y equals negative 3x minus 1. Then I divide everything by negative 1, and I would get y equals 3x plus 1. So far it looks good. I should have pointed out, I look at step 5, we thought the answers were 1 and 4. If you plug in step 5, I got a yes and a no. It didn't work. I was supposed to get negative 6, and I got negative 16. So that's why I know there's something that went wrong in there. I need to go back and check my work. So you guys need to make sure and show your work clearly enough so when this happens to you, I can help you identify where you made a mistake. So moving over, that looks good. Let's plug it in over here. So y is 3x plus 1. So I'm just going to take y right here and put 3x plus 1 in its place. And I don't know if you can see it, but I can see the mistake already. Here it is. We worked on this first chapter. When you distribute a negative, don't lose that negative. It happens all the time. So that's where the mistake was right there. That should have been a negative. That would stay negative. This would end up being a negative 1, and you would end up with a fraction solution on this one of 1/11. Then you'd have to plug it in over here to figure out what y is. I just wanted us to identify where the problem was, and this is where the problem was. But if you did want to continue to solve over here, instead of plugging in 1, we should have plugged in 1/11. So y would be 3/11 plus 1. That'd be 3/11 plus 11/11. So y would be 14/11. That would be the solution here. I'm not going to go and check that right now because, again, I just wanted you to point out that, hey, this is where the mistake was. That's what caused the problem. Okay, so a couple examples. Again, I would split these up into 2 columns and get a letter alone. Here I would get one of the y's alone because they both have a coefficient of negative 1. I'll start on the left on this one, get this y alone. If I get this y alone, it'd be negative y equals negative 2x plus 3. So y equals 2x minus 3. My step 2 is over here. Step 2 is rewrite the equation that's above this column, except in place of the letter you're replacing, here I'm replacing y, put in parentheses what it equals. In this case, it's 2x minus 3. Try to clean up this equals symbol for you there. Now notice this would be a spot where it'd be easy to make a mistake because there's a minus y, so again, you need to distribute the negative, and that'll turn into a negative 2x plus 3. So this would be x plus 3 equals 4, and you find out x has to equal 1, or x should be 1. That's your step 3, is to get that answer. Look at all this space over to the left. That tells me I probably want to do something over here. That's where step 4 goes. All I do is use the equation that I have right up above here, only instead of having an x in there, I put what I think it equals, and I think I equal that x equals 1. Solve that up, you get 2 minus 3. We think y equals negative 1. Checking answers, I want to plug in 1, negative 1. The top one here, I'd have 2 times 1 minus negative 1. That is 3, because that'd be 2 plus 1. The bottom one, 3 times 1 minus negative 1. That is 4, because that would turn into 3 plus 1. So Time for the happy dance. I think I'll maybe do a little sprinkler right here. I'm doing the sprinkler. Okay, last example. Again, make 2 columns. Get a letter alone. Don't make it any harder than it already is. Step 1 is done here, people. There is a letter alone. Your letter doesn't have to be Y, it can be X, and if it's alone, don't create more work for yourself. Step 2 is to take the letter and plug it in or plug in what it equals into the other equation. So I've got 3, and then I'm going to put parentheses plus 2y equals 8. So I rewrote everything in the equation except for the x, and now I just put in the negative 4 minus 4y. Distribute, get negative 12 minus 12y. I'm going to go back to the blue there. Negative 12 minus 12y plus 2y equals 8. And now we're just solving a simple equation. Negative 10y equals 20, y equals negative 2. That's my step 3, getting that solution. Again, I have all this space over on the left-hand side now, so let's do our step 4 over here. I've got to figure out what x equals. X equals negative 4 minus 4y, but we think y is negative 2. So plug that in. Negative 4 times negative 2 is positive 8. We think x is 4. So we think answers are x is 4, y is negative 2. Plug those in, you'd have 3 times 4 plus 2 times negative 2. That would be 12 plus negative 4, which is in fact 8. So far feeling good. Then we got to plug in 4, negative 2 for the bottom one here. So we want to plug that in. I'll do that right over here. So it'd be 4 equals negative 4 minus 4 times negative 2. Plugged in 4 for x, negative 2 for y. And if I do that, I get 4 equals negative 4 plus 8, and that is true, so it's happy dance time. I think I'll do the shopping cart this time. Yep, I'm doing the shopping cart. Good times. That's solving systems by substitution. There are some word problems, but we'll deal with those in person. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.